Hi, and welcome to Archery Ops Podcast, brought to you by Gold Tip Arrows and Bee Stinger Stabilizers. On each episode, we talk to top experts in archery and bow hunting about what it takes to shoot better and hunt better, target after target, hunt after hunt, shot after shot. I'm your host, Tim Gillingham. Let's roll. Hey, everybody, it's Tim Gillingham with the new Archery Ops Podcast with Gold Tip. This is episode number 9. I'm here with Allen Bolen. Many of you may not know Allen. Allen's a good friend of mine and one of the Gold Tip staff shooters, but he's a very renowned bow hunter and a very neat guy that has a passion for pursuing not just any animals, but large animals. And we'll get into that in a bit here. His deal is he told me he likes Boone and Crockett animals with a bow, and he's got the moxie to pass up something like 22 Dall sheep without shooting one yet. So, I mean, I couldn't do that, but yeah. Welcome, Allen.
Hey,
nice
Tim.
to have you here.
Yeah, buddy. Good to get together.
Yeah, it's this podcast is going pretty good. Our goal of the podcast is to get people introduced to some of the technical expertise in the industry, some of the real movers and shakers in the industry, the guys that are experts in their category, really. In the beginning, we want to get a real good ground floor under this thing, and then my goal is to bring people in that people don't really know that are experts in their category, that may be real experts on penetration. I got a guy in Australia, for example, that shot 400 water buffalo with a bow.
So he knows it.
He probably knows a bit about penetration,
right?
No
kidding. That's cool.
You are kind of an adventure bow hunter, I guess you'd say. You've killed...
I'm out in the field as much as I possibly can be, but I also love technology, and I love doing things right. I mess with my equipment all the time. I do a lot of the stuff I do. From you and Kevin, right?
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations.
Yeah, you guys got me started down the right path, and I like doing all my own stuff.
Sure.
I'll have even somebody like you or Kevin tune my bow and get it back. I'm like, nah. I got it. I know. I like, just because it's like so personal, so I'm way into the gear and I'm way into the hunt.
Well, that's one of the important things that people need to understand is that a bow shop cannot tune your bow.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to take responsibility as a bow hunter to learn the lore of bow hunting. You got to learn how to, if you want the most out of your equipment, you have to learn how to make it work for you. And as a professional shooter, it's even, I had a podcast with Paige Pierce yesterday, and we talk a lot about that, about taking responsibility. About if you're going to call yourself a professional, you need to learn the game. Okay. Yeah. You need to learn your equipment. You need to learn what makes good, better, and great. There's different categories. I went in the field hunting with bows that I didn't take enough time with, and they ended up burning me.
Well,
so
the thing is, I agree with you definitely, and like that's what I do. But I do realize also that your recreational weekend warrior bow hunter is like, this stuff is witchcraft.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And I think that a bow shop can get you 75% of the way there. And they can get you a good bow shop can get you somewhat tuned, and you're going to be flying pretty well. And if you have the right broadhead and you test it a little bit, you're probably going to be okay. But there's another level.
Right.
There's another level that the really finicky hunter, and tuning for a hunting rig is in my opinion, it's way more difficult than tuning for a target rig, because you got to make that broadhead fly.
Yeah, broadhead's definitely. You're right.
It's a completely different variable, and it's a challenge, right?
The target it's really the same to a certain degree. If I take large diameter arrows, for example, and I want to shoot them at 50 yards, they have a large surface area. Okay, so they have to be tuned a little different. If I shoot a bow at 340 foot a second, I have to shoot that bow a little bit better.
340 feet.
I know you've never seen that, but...
No, at 5'8", I've never seen that.
But anyway, it's all kind of the same. But yes, a lot of the industry is, I call it dumbed down to the 30-yard whitetail bow hunter, but that is the majority of the market. That's right. But I challenge people, and one of my goals is to create a training website. My name I want to use is I Can Archery. Simple, to the point.
I Can Archery.
I Can Archery. I grew up with a mother that told me every time I said I can't, she's like, get out there and do it. So,
Tim, dude, if you came up with a training resource, it would be freaking incredible. There's so much garbage out there.
Yeah, there is a lot.
It's regurgitated stuff. People trying to explain something they don't actually understand.
Yeah.
And a guy like you who's actually thought through this crap, it would be incredible.
Well, I think it's important to teach people what they're doing rather than just how to do it.
Yeah.
Because once you understand why you're doing it, you'll be able to analyze different setups, different sites, different this, different that, and you'll be able to actually make an educated decision as to how to get from A to Z, but and what's good, better, and best in every category. So,
well, the guys who really understand stuff like you never stop questioning. I remember, I 3-4 years ago or something, you were telling me I was bear shaft tuning. You're like, don't do that. It doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm like, and I listened and I use your tuning method from 5 yards through paper.
Sure.
Right. And it's the best way to do it. But I noticed a few months ago, you're experimenting with bear shaft tuning. You wanted to prove it to yourself. You're always asking questions.
That's not necessarily the truth. I use a bear shaft. Now, if you go in Gold Tip's YouTube channel, there's a lot of resources there for you guys that want to learn this stuff. Yeah. I've got 11 video series on our Gold Tip's YouTube channel, which is my tuning process. It's what I do. And I correlate bear shaft tuning to broadhead tuning to paper tuning. Mm-hmm. And I will use a bear shaft when I don't have paper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's always very cautionary, because until I can qualify that a bear shaft actually reacts dynamically the same through paper as my fletch shaft or my broadhead shaft. So let's just look what you got here.
Yeah.
So you got two different arrows here.
And both of those, by the way, are carried in the same quiver at the same time.
Yeah.
And they both group together 100 yards.
Yeah, you barely draw the bow back. So, so let's just look at this, for example. If I did this on my bow with these two different length heads, number one, they wouldn't even shoot the same tear. Not even close.
Interesting.
Okay, and the harder you push the spine on an arrow, the more you're going to see those variables come up.
Yeah,
and
which I am pushing the spine. I'm only shooting 340s, but they're 25 3/4 inches of carbon.
Right.
So,
like I said, when Allen's got, what you draw like now?
28 and a half.
28 and a half. So he's probably really stretching to get that.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
My string loop's like 3/8 of an inch, and my release comes back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pushing it.
You got the equalizer.
Yeah, I tweak everything to get more draw length. If I shot a straight up release like my standard length, I'd probably be shooting 27.
So do you anchor back in here?
So I anchor bone on bone.
Where's the string come to?
My punch across my nose and then through here.
Okay, so
it's actually a really low anchor point.
Sure.
Which gives me a ton of, I get 145 yards out of my sight.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm bone on bone, punching knuckle against the flat edge of the back of my jawbone.
Right, short axle bows probably allow that. Now, when I go to short axle, I have to kind of tip my head down a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
Which I kind of like that feel.
Yeah.
Of locking in. But
okay.
What we're trying to explain to you is Allen's power stroke length versus my power stroke length. It's like a short golf swing and a long golf swing, or a tall bull rider or a short bull rider.
Yeah.
There's advantages and disadvantages to every, size, shape, what have you. So what he sees is not necessarily what I'm going to see. So, you have to be a student of the game, and you have to learn what works for you. Paige and I talked about this a lot, in Vita archery, for example. It's heavily coached. And because you got a lot of young kids coming in, and the coaches aren't necessarily your best shooters, but they're there because they're available, and they kind of just follow the status quo because, a lot of them didn't take the time they weren't great shooters, so they didn't have, the repertoire to really delve into it. So
if you can't do, teach, right? They've said, people have said that.
Yeah, teaching's tough in this sport. People will spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go on hunts and not 2 nickels to learn how to shoot a bow.
No, it's unbelievable. Man.
I could probably take most people and in 2 hours improve their shooting 100%.
I go on a lot of like high-end hunts with good outfitters, and they hate bow hunters.
Yeah.
They do, because of all the bad experiences. I went with this guy in Oregon 2 years ago, and now this is hunting out of a blind for black-tailed deer over like alfalfa, right?
Right.
So you're making a 20-yard shot. They had 7 out of 8 guys wound deer at 20 yards out of a freaking ground blind. And in his defense, I would hate bow hunters too.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of results you're getting, like the guys show up, they don't know. And I guess part of the problem too is he's booking a lot of like the SCI crowd. Yeah. Like the really wealthy.
Well, that's just crazy.
I don't know.
Those guys have the resources to bring somebody like me in. If they brought me in one time, I'd give them the basic fundamentals that would make them a good archer the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to name names.
Yeah.
But I have a friend. You know who Steve Cobreen is?
You just named a name.
Steve Cobreen?
Yeah.
Well, Steve's a good guy. super technical.
Yeah.
He and I are like twins, man.
Okay.
He's 6'6", and just the guy's like the quintessential British explorer guy. I'm going to bring him on this podcast. We're going to have to do a series with him. This guy's got more stories, and it's amazing to listen to him. I'm actually going to Africa with one of his best friends. So I'm really looking forward to this. Guy's about my size too. And so we're going to spend a little time. This guy wants to, he's looking forward to me coming over and actually helping him. I'm taking 2 bows for him. One's a buffalo bow and one's his regular bow. And I'm going to teach him the basic fundamentals. And he's giving me a good deal on the hunt because we're going to, he's going to get something out of it. I'm going to get something out of it. It should be a really good time. But Steve had a bow hunter over one time. And he said, I put this guy, and we all know this guy. I mean, this guy's killed a couple of super slams with a bow. But
Yeah.
it's just the shooting skills. The guy had target panic pretty bad. And he said, I put him on a beach, just shooting at a box or something. He said, come back like 20 minutes later, he hadn't even hit the box.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But
No, I outfitted for 17 years.
yeah.
I'll tell you, man. Like the guys that, some of the guys and you've heard of, they can't shoot.
I get this question a lot. How important are my stabilizers? Well, stabilizers probably one of the most important things on my bow. Its job is to control the motion before, during, and after the shot. That helps us hold steady. It helps hold the bow still while the bow is loading and unloading from full draw to static. And it also controls the bow against our mistakes, so it makes it more forgiving. With Bee Stinger, you get a lightweight, high modulus bar with vibration dampening built into the bar. This is very critical in terms of getting the most out of your stabilization system. If you want to learn more, check out beestinger.com. When I was telling you a story earlier about almost winning a stone sheep hunt, and we're in a second here, we're going to talk about Allen's stone sheep behind us here because it's an absolute toad. And Dallas Smith won a sheep hunt that year in the drawing.
Oh, yeah, that was the year.
And the outfitter didn't even want to take him.
I know.
Wasn't going to take him bow hunting.
He had to talk him into it.
Because it kills their, hunter success ratios and stuff. And I understand because I've doll sheep hunted with a bow. I've killed one with a bow.
Yeah.
I think I went on 3 hunts when I lived in Alaska or 4, and it's not easy,
Finding an outfitter that wants to work with you, it's a challenge, and especially with what I'm after. I'm trying to kill a Boone and Crockett doll.
Yeah, that's tough.
And that's a story. Like, there's only been 2 ever killed with bow in history.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Tony Russ,
and then he's an outfitter in the Yukon. His name
Greg
just no, it's not Greg McHale. He's a good buddy of mine.
Oh, yeah.
But he owns an outfit in the Yukon. And he's the only person on earth who's killed a stone and a doll, Boone and Crockett, with a bow.
Yeah, that's out of my pay grade.
But both of them were off the same mountain, and the sheep were probably brothers.
Oh, wow.
We found a black hair on one, so it became a stone, right?
Interesting.
But anyway, I mean, it's thin horn sheep. Like, you cannot buy a big thin horn. It doesn't exist.
Right.
Like 170-inch thin horn doll sheep, there's 5 a year killed in the world with any weapon out of thousands of sheep harvested between Alaska, the Yukon, Northwest Territories. It's like a unicorn.
Yeah,
basically.
I killed a 13-and-a-half-year-old ram.
That's awesome.
And I believe we scored him out somewhere around 159.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
170.
That's an old sheep.
170 is
maybe it's 11 and a half. 11 and a half sounds wrong. Right. I think he's just a really old ram.
No, that's a beautiful, the prime. Like, anything over 10 is unbelievable.
But,
this ram here is actually 14. Yeah. It's extremely rare, and I got very, very lucky on this.
This stone sheep Allen killed behind us here is just an absolute monster. Number 2 in the world, you said?
Yeah, and it's actually the largest general season ram ever killed, because the number 1 was killed on like a governor's tag in November kind of thing, like not like it's off a snow machine kind of thing. Yeah. This ram. So I was, when you can't just walk up to an outfitter and say, "Hey, I want to hunt a Boone and Crockett stone ram with my bow."
Yeah.
I mean, they will literally laugh you out of the trade show.
Right.
Like, it's not, so you have to like approach this the right way. You have to like start to build a relationship, start to talk to them. You can't just drop that on somebody because it's such an impossible thing. And so I started, talking to Aaron Florian at Yukon Stone quite a bit. And I told him what I was after. And he's like, you realize that's almost impossible. And I said, yeah, I know. And I'm willing to come home with nothing. And you know, Tim, on 70% of my hunts, I come home with nothing.
That's crazy.
I just don't like it. The thing is, like, I'm not necessarily happy about coming home with anything, but killing something that I didn't want wouldn't like make me happier. So it's not like I could fix the problem, right? I just have to keep hunting. So Aaron said, I have this area that I located in the records, like not the records like record books, but in the old Yukon, like they keep records of where everything was killed. And back in the early 80s and 70s, there's this mountain range in my area that they were killing sheep off of. And all of a sudden, like in 1983, nobody killed any more sheep after that. And what happened is the area was sold and the knowledge was never passed on. So he's like, I think there's sheep in there. We're going to go scout it this summer, and nobody has hunted that area since 1983.
Holy cow.
And I said, freaking sign me up.
Sign me up.
Yeah. And so I booked the hunt, and I mean, it was $50,000 I didn't have. Yeah. And I mean, it was like, I'm not a rich guy. I spend every dime hunting, you know?
Yeah.
And
I
anyway,
couldn't pull that one off. I'd get in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, you get in trouble if they know about it.
That's a pretty big slush fund that people don't know about.
But anyway, so I went on this hunt, and we went in there.
$5,000 stone sheep hunt.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I forgot it's zero. But we went in there, and I mean, there was 13 rams in there, and this one and actually another ram that was 170 was in there, and I killed this ram on day 2, and it was interesting. Like when we went in there, those sheep had never seen a human being.
That's crazy.
And when we left, those sheep had never seen a human being.
Really?
Yeah, we killed this ram. They didn't even know what happened.
Isn't that the best?
It's the best.
Isn't that the very best feeling as a bow hunter?
Yeah,
you know, I went
so stealthy that, yeah.
I went to Alaska last year, and I shot 2 caribou. Neither one of them knew I was there. But I remember having this sheep conversation with the outfitter, because we did a drop camp.
Yeah.
And we're back at the lodge waiting to get picked up. And he's talking about a guy he had come in bow hunt for sheep, and they had a video of this guy shooting 5 arrows over the top of his back in a group like that in the rocks. and they kind of hated bow hunters. I mean, to that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, if you're a bow hunter and you pass up illegal sheep, we're firing you.
Yeah. No,
and they said they had one guy that was crazy and I said, that's the guy I want if I'm coming. He's like, well, you can have him. Because they didn't like the work it took to get a sheep with a bow.
It is a lot of work. You know, as an outfitter, like bow hunters are, you know, the rifle hunters for mountain goats, you know, you're done in the first day or two.
Simple.
And with a bow hunter, you're in there 8 days grinding.
Yeah.
And it's what you sign up for. And you got to find an outfitter that's okay with that.
Yeah.
So this sheep ended up being the largest ram killed out of the Yukon in 50 years with any weapon. It's like a once in 1,000 lifetimes.
That's pretty special to have that in your repertoire.
It's the best animal I'll ever lay eyes on in my life.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
what
70, he scored 176. He's 45 and 5/8 long.
Oh my gosh. That's just crazy long.
Unbelievable ram.
That's crazy long. Because like Tony Russ's world record, Dahl was 42. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's 171 inch. That area has a little better mass. So,
I've heard they've just that whole sheep population on the Chugach Mountain Range is bad now.
Yeah, I mean, there's occasionally a big ram killed out of there, obviously, but I mean, it's iconic, but I don't know that it is what it was. I mean, it's definitely not what it was.
Is anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, there's just more people want to hunt and not enough animals, you know, and then we have winters like last year that destroy everything. So
I just finished my 7th Dahl sheep hunt this summer.
Yeah, tell everybody how many Dahl sheep you've passed up with a bow.
28. I've passed 28 legal rams.
That is insane.
Yeah.
He's never killed a Dahl sheep with a bow, yet he's passed up 28 legal rams.
Yeah, I passed up this summer.
That's crazy.
I passed up 2 that were over 160, which is probably top 10 in the world.
Yeah, that's a nice sheep.
It's a damn good sheep. Yeah, and but you
never want to get your feet wet, you know, and then maybe go try to kill a bigger one?
I kind of do, but I kind of don't, because I've done that. Yeah. Like I've learned, you know, like I'll be whitetail hunting and I'm after a giant and it's just the odds are low. Like this thing's shown up on camera like once every 30 days. And I'm at toward the end of my hunt. So I shoot, you know, 155 inch buck or something. Well, no, but when I walk up to that deer, it doesn't make me feel better.
That's true.
It doesn't like make me happy to shoot something that I didn't
Yeah,
want.
the pursuit is, people think about even big animals, for example, that you didn't work hard for. They're not have near as much gratification as the ones you just murdered yourself for.
Yeah. The hunt, it's about the hunt. To me, I'm not a killer. Yeah. I'm really not. Like, I'm not a guy who needs to go and kill something to like pound my chest and boost my ego. Like, I can come home with nothing. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I want, and I have fun doing it. Like, I'm not a guy who, like, I come home empty-handed and I didn't have fun. I have a freaking blast. Yeah. To me, it's fun to hunt giants.
There is a lot of pressure to for me, I guess you'd say, in some of the people industry to always put animals on
social or whatever.
Or validate yourself as a hunter. And,
sure.
I went on that hunt 13 days this year, probably walked 120 miles, just 1,500 vertical, 2 or 3 times a day, just killing you. Yeah. And
on a tag that takes a long time to draw.
Yeah. And you just feel the pressure building as you get closer and closer to the end. But what's so funny at the end, we did a real recap video, and it was like, I felt content. I was okay not killing one. Finally, and that's not normal. I normally I thought it was a dead ringer, when I started, it's just a matter of which one do I want,
Right.
But the back of you is very reserved and understands how difficult it truly is to harvest animals with a bow.
You got to have a little luck. Like, you at least, it is very possible on a bow hunt to do everything right and just have a little bit of bad luck that doesn't let it all happen. You can't always control it.
Obviously, you're an expert hunter. You're probably really sneaky too. I kind of look at the fact that it's like evolution. I had to learn to shoot good because I'm not very sneaky.
Well, you're too big. Everybody says, "Hey, you got a short draw length." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm super little."
Did you ever know Lon Lauber?
Yeah,
Lon was that way. Lon told me a story one time. He followed a sheep on the Kenai Peninsula for 8 straight days.
Jeez,
8 straight days. He got out of there. He had a liver disorder. He killed the sheep. Waited for the fog bank to roll in, come in, killed this nice 38-inch ram, but he was like a little troll. He just he always got it done. It just seemed like, but he was one of the guys I grew up around in Alaska, and he was always out and about, finger shooter. He probably missed more animals with fingers than I would hate to think about.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be tough.
Rich Moran was another guy. He killed I think he had the number 2 Dall sheep for a while up there.
I've heard the name.
Yeah. Yeah, he and I were up on the Kenai there one year, and I kind of passed his camp in the pre-dawn. And I get on these 2 rams, and I'd actually kind of got on them, and then they moved, and they bedded right on this little ledge, and I snuck up on the ledge. This was before rangefinders. And I thought, I'm finally going to kill one with a bow. And I'm seeing them, I'm judging them at like 40 yards, and I drew, popped up over. Well, they stood up and turned hard on me, and I put my pin right, for an hard angle shot.
Yeah.
Right as I touched off, that sucker took a step and just turned a little bit and shot him right through the butt cheeks. I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" I was just devastated. And I never hit anything. I followed that sheep all the way up, and he was busting my chops later about it. You should have got closer. I'm like, dude, how much closer can I get?
Yeah, I mean, these are sheep.
Yeah, seriously. I shot mine at when I drew that Chugach tag. I actually killed that sheep 3 days before I moved from Alaska, and
you got it just in.
I learned a lot on that hunt, and I learned all this stuff from shooting tournament archery. Okay, so one of the reasons I made a successful shot on that animal was I had talked to a couple guys that had been on sheep hunts on, the Toke management area and things like that, and they're like, you're going to get shots, but they're going to be steep, and it's really hard to know what to shoot them for, and so on and so forth. So I had been reading a book by Kirk Etheridge, and it was my first introduction to a cut chart. Okay, so he had this little cosine
About
cut.
What year was this?
97.
Okay.
So, yeah. So he had this little cut chart in there. I laminated it, put it in my pack, and I had a little cheap angle meter I got at the hardware store.
Yep.
Well, I ended up getting up on this sheep, and I'm right above him. I angle it 55-degree slope.
Wow.
At 46 yards. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I sit back on the cliff, and I get the chart out. And I extrapolated it out a little bit, and I'm like, this thing's telling me to shoot it for 21 yards.
That's crazy. And
you know how hard it is to do that?
Again, it's witchcraft, man.
You know how hard it is to shoot an animal for 21 yards when the rangefinder's telling you 46? And it just absolutely center punched him.
Yeah.
And I shot him twice. He never even moved. Went zip, zip. And then I crawled back around him and shot him again. And then he just fell over. That sheep never took one step.
Is that right?
Isn't that crazy?
Did you paralyze him with the first shot? Or
No, it went right under the backbone and down through.
And he just
pastures.
Didn't have the will to get up.
I think he just knew his goose was cooked.
Yeah. Dang, man.
The great thing about it is, this is a good story because I had shot, I swear I ran into Tony Russ, and I won't get into that any further, but I had watched these two rams go into this basin. So I grabbed 3 days gear and went back up in, and the opening day I had got on this ram. And I snuck up onto 48 yards, perfect stock. He's bedded overlooking his vista. And I knew my rangefinder.
Was this the archery area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first year that Bushnell came out with that laser rangefinder, and I had the big old Bushnell rangefinder.
I remember that, yeah.
And there was something wrong with it. I didn't know what it was, but like anything, some things I just don't take time to learn what the problem was. Probably should have read the directions. But I knew if I added 10% to it, it was right. Well, it was on meters in retrospect. So I sneak up on this sheep. I range it 48 yards. This is the last time I ever used a single pin sight in my life. For all you people that like single pin sights, this is why I don't do it. Mm-hmm. I dial the sight to 52. Perfect shot. He has no clue I'm there. And I blew a chunk of hair off the top of his back, and I was just sick. I was sick. He jumps up, turns and runs about 10 yards. Now I got a single pin, and I'm like, I'll just hold it about there.
Yeah.
And I clipped his ear, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just devastated. And I was trying to get out of Alaska, so I'd called my brother, and I ended up
You were going to kill your sheep before you moved.
No, I had to leave.
Okay.
I flew to Omaha to interview for the railroad because that's, he got me a job at the railroad, and they kept me down there for 2 weeks. I got home, I had 4 days left. And I went back in there, and I ended up seeing 7 rams on the mountain, all excited. Get up in the morning, and it's just pea soup fog to the river. You can't see a thing.
Yeah.
And I saw one ram in the fog up there, and I snuck in around. It was this ram, and ended up killing him. And he had a chunk of hair off the top of his back, and his ear clipped.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Same sheep on the other side of the mountain.
That is cool.
Isn't that a neat story?
That is amazing.
Yeah. So.
And did you suspect that? Or when you
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was always like, well, is he big enough? I'm like, I was really happy with him when I got up to him.
That's great.
So.
Well, 11-year-old ram, I mean.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was funny as Tony was sitting there watching that ram, and I kind of accidentally bumped it off him. He got all mad at me, but whatever. Mm-hmm. He's kind of uptight.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that from a couple people.
Yeah. So anyway, let's kind of cover, give us some of your strategies for different sheep. You have a really big mountain goat over here you've killed too. Tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah,
that's a BC goat.
I'm pretty sure that was the first Boone and Crockett animal I ever killed. It was in 2005. And that was actually the world record when I shot it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hammer.
Yeah, it's a good one. He's 52 and 6/8.
That's crazy big.
And, so the way, people, there's a lot of guys into the super slam, killing all 29. I have zero interest in that. I don't want to rush through that experience. I mean, I would love to hunt all 29 species in North America, and sure, I'd love to shoot them all, but I don't want to shoot anything small.
Yeah.
I don't even want to shoot anything medium sized.
Yeah.
I want to shoot giants. And
you're just an overachiever.
Well, I don't know. I just love challenge.
Yeah.
I love challenge, and I know what it takes to kill a Boone and Crockett animal. It's extremely difficult. Most people hunt a lifetime and never see one.
Right.
And I want to go, I'm working through the 29, and I'll never get to 29 because I don't move on to a new species until I've killed a Booner. So I've been through, I've killed 8 species now, Boone and Crockett, which I think is more than anyone else.
What animals do you have that are Boone and Crockett now?
So I have a mountain goat, a grizzly. I have 3 caribou, 3 of the 5 species of caribou. So I'm close to getting a Boone and Crockett caribou slam.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't think's ever been done with a
caribou
rifle.
Are so cool to
They're
hunt with a bow.
freaking fun.
I love them.
They're freaking fun.
Yeah.
So that's 5. And then I've got stone sheep, bison, and Sitka black-tailed deer.
Yeah, you killed that bison here in Utah, right?
Yeah, it's state record. It's right here. behind me. Yeah, so he's a dandy.
Since I was a little kid, we didn't have a TV growing up, and I read lots of books.
Yeah.
Still to this day, if I shoot a buffalo, I just have this like burning desire to do it like the Indians did and ride it down on a horse and stab it. And I think the only guy
honestly, that's the last thing I expected you to say.
The only guy I think I could talk into that, I tried to get Nugent. I don't think he would do it, but Tim Wells would do it. I know.
Oh, yeah.
So Tim, if you hear this, come on, man, let's do it.
So do you ride a horse well?
I can learn anything.
And I imagine you use a recurve, right? You'd have to use a recurve.
Recurve or a little.
Yeah.
I got Indian friends, and I kind of posed the idea to him. I was like, would that be disrespectful if a white guy wanted to do that? He said, hell no, we'd laugh our ass off.
Dude, that would be so freaking cool.
I don't know what it is. That seems so like, you just romanticize that. Scenario.
I would do anything to be there for that. That would be amazing.
There'd have to be a lot of preparation to something like that.
I think that it would be, there might be some injuries.
They say everything worth having has risk associated with
it. You're like running full speed on a horse, which, like
they do that. Have you seen those Turkish archers?
I know they do it.
I have a friend.
These guys probably spend like 1,000 hours. Like,
they ride horses. I can ride a horse. I got long legs.
Yeah.
You just got to have a, Comanche style.
And you got to,
I don't know if I do Comanche.
Learn to move with it. Put it all in the stirrups and you're going to stand up and you're going to.
It would all be about the horse. Yeah.
Oh man, that would be insane.
But can you imagine doing that bareback like the Indians used to do it?
Oh, no, I can't imagine that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Really kind of simple. Keep your mind in the middle, right? That's my strategy.
Yeah. I wonder where that would be legal.
I'm pretty sure the Ute Indian Reservation.
Yeah.
Probably
South
Dakota.
There's plenty of like huge high fence places where things are.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just
I don't care if it's a wild buffalo or a tame buffalo. You run it with a horse, it's going to be an adventure.
I've heard they're fast.
Dude, they move.
I've heard they're faster than horses.
On the Henrys where I shot this thing,
it's probably a bad place to do it.
Yeah, the Henrys would be a very bad place. There's no way you're going to run a horse. It's so rough, rugged, right? Yeah. But the bison were spookier than the deer.
I've heard that.
Like you'll be driving up on, and you literally 190-inch buck standing off the road at 40 yards, chewing its cud, looking at you.
Never had that happen.
And then, the Henrys is incredible. And then you'll drive down the road and there's some bison and they see the truck and they take off running. You're like, how is it that 190-inch buck is less spooky than these bison? They're wired up. Mm-hmm. It's a cool hunt. That was one of those hunts that I just got lucky. Like it just killed it opening morning.
Yeah.
We found it the night before and it's kind of a crazy story because I hired a guide for that because it's like a very rare tag, and I wanted to make sure to maximize my odds.
It's amazing.
I do a lot of stuff on my own, but
I
don't hunt bison. I've never done that. I need help, right? So I know when that's the case. But he had spent the entire summer there scouting deer, and the big, he found a couple of nice bison, but nothing like this guy. They were like maybe barely book, and he's like, look, this is the best I found. Like I got there a few days early. He's like, let's scout three more days hard and see what we come up with. If not, and getting toward like the end of the last day, we're like, well, we're just going to have to go hunt one of those two we found. And right on the last day before the opener, we spotted this guy right at dark. Yeah. And he was just a giant. And the next morning we killed him. Yeah, it was amazing.
I really respect the guys like, yourself, Sean Morgan's another guy. It's like, the amount of work they put in to kill animals is crazy. It's like, I guess I don't value it that much, but it's like somebody told me the story about Sean killed that big buck on the Oak Creeks and Doyle Moss and his crew was headed up to whack it. And,
I was talking to the Lemon Boys they were all over that deer all summer.
Yeah. Sean
they didn't have an archery hunter though.
And Sean just
he came in underneath everybody.
Yeah. He's a hunter. For him to kill the amount of big deer on the Wasatch Front, like right behind us here, that's impressive. You got 3 big bucks over here, 4. Them are big deer. I mean, to kill them on the Wasatch Front with all the pressure, and it's an archery only area, but it's just steep and deep and brutal. And I've killed a lot of deer up there, but maybe it's because I shoot all the small ones. That's my problem.
Well, I don't know.
I got lots of lessons. I got 2 or 3 lessons on a couple giants.
Yeah, you kill nice animals. I mean, I've seen what you kill. You're not killing small ones. But they're not, they're representative or whatever. I mean, there's you have there's a small animal and there's a nice one, and then there's the rare giant.
I recognize that I don't put as much into it. I like the hunting experience. I'll bomb up for the morning and go before daylight and hunt, and then maybe I'll go 2 days later. I'm not die hard about it anymore.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, people need to do what they like. Some people like to just go kill stuff, and some people like whatever, like, hey, I want a nice 4-point buck and I'm going to, and that's fine. And like, I have zero criticism of any of that. Yeah. I just like something different.
Sure. Absolutely.
And to me, it's like, I like,
I respect that drive to do that, that the all-in nature that it takes to do that, because that's what it takes. I mean, it's just like, and I don't have time. I'm that way in my archery, I'm all in. I'll stay up every hour of the night.
That's right. Yeah.
I like that technical. I'm into air rifles now too, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like this uncharted territory, and I just love digging into it and learning.
Mm-hmm. Think about how much knowledge there is of the science of archery that's happened in the last 20 years since you started getting way into it.
Yeah,
it's crazy how much we know now.
Yeah,
compared to, like, you read a book, a book written about tuning bows or whatever that was written in the 80s.
Right.
It's unbelievable how they didn't know
how basic it is. Yeah. I had to learn everything the hard way. I mean, people told me one thing, and you did another thing, and I remember taking the old satellite broadheads out, and they did a big loop, and you're like, what the hell just happened? And you have no idea. And then paper tuning come on board, and then drop away rest was a big deal.
Yeah.
And we had all kinds of crappy drop away rest, just like we had all kinds of crappy compounds before we had good compounds.
The first drop away, wasn't it a trophy taker?
No. Golden Key for sure. Probably.
Golden Key, yeah.
It was probably even before that, but Golden Key was kind of some of the first, and it was very sloppy tolerances.
I remember when I showed up to the Wednesday night archery league at Jake's Archery with the drop away, and people were like, what is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is really cool. It gets out of the way of the fletching. I read about it on Archery Talk.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was, and that was...
Well, it's probably before Archery Talk.
Maybe, I don't know. At least that's when I started shooting them. I don't know. Maybe I have my time frames mixed up a little, but...
Yeah.
But
we used to use the NAP flipper S. I remember shooting Star Hunters, and carbon arrows come out. That was always a trick, because you had these micro diameter Beemans and PC carbons, and you're like, how am I going to get clearance on this little tiny thing? And you used to shoot these Star carbon rest, little Star Hunters, and you just kind of crashing through it a little bit, and then the Whisker Biscuit, and I never did shoot a Whisker Biscuit.
I've never.
Whisker Biscuit offended all my sensibilities.
Hey, Whisker Biscuit's for kids, man.
Hey, tell Jake Jacobson that, or Pete Shepley, they love that thing.
I know.
My buddy Russ, Russ and Corky Richardson down in Arizona? Mm-hmm. They both love the Whisker Biscuit.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I mean, I get it, but I just say that for kids.
Yeah. So strategies on, let's say, if somebody wanted to go plan a mountain goat hunt, what would you tell them?
Yeah. So mountain goat is readily available in BC and Alaska. You can book a hunt with an outfitter, guaranteed tags.
I think it's one of the easiest animals to kill with a bow. Just got to get up to them.
Yeah. They're definitely different in Alaska and BC than they are, say, on Timp.
Yeah.
The ones on Timp, they're used to tourists. Your best camo on Timp is a bright orange shirt and carry a camera, and they're going to think you're a tourist, and they're going to let you walk right up to them.
My wife would disagree, because she had a tag a few years ago. We hiked up the backside of Timp, and I scared the crap out of her. First, we went up Big Cottonwood one day. And
they live in some nasty stuff in these Utah mountains, some unhuntable stuff.
I've seen them up in the backside of the Klutna there in Alaska, where I was hunting sheep, and they were in some stuff that I ain't going there.
Yeah. No,
and if you killed one, they'd fall. 2,000.
Their defense is, it's funny how animals are. You spook a whitetail, and it's going to go hide.
Right.
You spook an antelope and it's just going to get distance on you.
Right.
Keep an eye on you, but it just wants to be way out there.
Right.
You spook a goat, it's going to be in plain sight in the middle of a 500-foot cliff.
Right.
And it knows it can't get to you. Like, they have different defense mechanisms, but I've killed 5 mountain goats with my bow, 2 Booners, and I guided mountain goats for 17 years.
Yeah.
I think British Columbia is a really good place to go, especially the coast of BC.
They kill some giants.
Yeah, Southeast Alaska too.
Yeah.
From Southeast Alaska down the coast of BC, that's where your biggest goats are. And the terrain isn't like, you go into the Rockies and they live in these huge cliff faces. Right. On the coast mountains,
extreme elevation too. That's bad. I killed mine in the winters. It was 13,000 feet.
Yeah, there you go.
That's hard to breathe in.
Yeah, and on the coast, like, we're hunting goats at 4,500 feet.
Yeah,
now the mountains are steep because you're starting at sea level.
Sure.
So it's 4,500 feet out of the ocean.
Right.
But it's not like it's easy to climb, but you're not dealing with that thin air. And the goats don't tend to live in the cliffs. They'll go to the cliffs if you spook them, but they live in the benches. Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. There's not a lot of wolves on the coast. Usually, there's very few mountain lions, and in most areas there aren't mountain lions.
That's interesting.
So they don't have a lot of natural predation. There's grizzlies, but they just hang out in the benches, and they're very stockable. I've killed all my goats, inside of 60 yards.
I was going to ask you what percentage of them are jumpers, and all the animals you've guided, goats, because that can be a problem. The second goat I ever killed, he fell and fell and fell and fell. We
had we killed 15 to 20 goats a year, and we had very, very few take falls.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had one get broke his skull plate, but I didn't lose. In fact, the one standing under that grizzly bear right there, that's a Boone and Crockett goat, and he took a heck of a fall.
That's a hell of a goat.
But yeah, goats are they're made to bow hunt, man.
They are. Isn't there something about a white animal that's why I love antelope hunting so much, because you can hunt them all day long.
Yeah.
That's probably the greatest thing about them is they're all day, they're visible, you can find them.
Yep.
One of the guys I used to work with had a Nebo tag a few years ago, and he about died on that hunt. That was tricky. You got to be very careful in that terrain, because what happened to him was just kind of a fluke. He had shot this goat even at 338, and instead of I don't know, you tell me, but my recommendation is if they're still standing, you keep shooting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you anchor them, because goats like to jump. And this goat went out of sight, and he was blood trailing, and he's just sitting there on the side of the hill with his gun in his pack, and the whole hillside gave loose.
No way.
And he said, I'm just scrambling. I'm just like spread out like this, and my gun hit a rock and flipped me over face first.
Oh my gosh.
He said he went off of an embankment, and he said, if I'd have kept going, it was 1,500 feet. That's where my goat was. And the goat was just absolutely destroyed.
Yeah. Now you got to be careful, man. Sheep hunting,
that's the
goat
closest
hunting,
I ever
a
came
lot
to
of
dying.
mule deer hunting. You got to be careful. I hate, nothing gets me in a worse mood hunting than exposure.
Yeah.
Like when I have a full pack on and my bow, and I'm hanging from my fingernails on a freaking rock, I'm pissed.
Oh, I know.
I hate that. It's just not worth it.
It's not. You're right. It's not worth it. The one thing I learned hunting goats and anything in steep terrain is you need to have concessions to put your bow on your pack.
Yes.
And absolutely. I never carry my bow in my pack until I'm in that situation, but because I'm always trying to protect my sight and my rest and whatever. Yeah. But that is an absolute must.
When I'm sheep hunting, my bow's on my pack the entire hunt.
So
until I'm going to stalk.
So do you shoot, I had this podcast with Aaron Snyder, and we talked about bow weight. Okay. Yep. So when you set a bow up, and I shoot a bow heavier better than I do a light bow.
Yep.
Do you lighten up for those hunts, or you just take your bow the way you set it up? Yeah.
I shoot, my hunting bow has, I think I run about 5 ounces on the stabilizer, and I use that low stabilizer mount point off the limb pocket that Hoyt uses.
That's a lot of leverage.
It adds a little more leverage, and I feel like it shoots pretty well. Of course, my my target rigs, I'm running way more weight and I could shoot better, but I don't feel like I need that for hunting.
Right.
But you're
only trying to hit that.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course if you're shooting 100 yards,
but if it's windy and it's, you're out of breath and weight helps. I mean, it definitely helps.
Stabilization is unbelievable.
What it does. And I think people don't think about using the quiver as stabilization.
Right.
I'm not a massive fan of the quivalizer because in tournament shooting, if you take a long stabilizer and you take weights off of it, it does two things. It changes your tune and your impact point.
Right.
And the more you take off of it, the more problem you have.
So the quivalizer, you're changing that.
Yeah, the closer you put that stuff to your bow, the less change you're going to have. So I kind of, you have your quiver here, and if you have an offset stabilizer here, the two kind of counteract each other, right?
Yep.
So, a quiver full of arrows, when I'm doing all my sighting in, it's with all but one arrow in my quiver.
Absolutely.
Because I do my tuning that way, because that's how my first shot's going to come out of the bow. So
I shoot all summer with 5 arrows in my quiver.
Yeah.
Like everything I do, all my tuning,
important.
all my shooting.
It's funny. I gave Michael Waddell crap when I had him on because I'm like, what's funny? Us Western guys, we watch all you Eastern guys come out here and you're elk hunting, and all of a sudden you take quiver off, lay it on the ground. I'm like,
I know.
What's he doing?
Why would you ever? You have to move. Like I want my quiver with me at all times.
I used to shoot ESPN Great Outdoor Games, and Mike Slinker one year he started Winner's Choice and has what's his company now that has Hex.
Okay.
He come one year with a 30 caliber magazine slotted out, and his arrows were like chunk, 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 chunk. I was like, man, that'd be cool. You just like chang, 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 chang.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was like, man, you're gonna score one of them arrows and wear it. But
it is tempting when you're carrying a freaking heavy pack.
Yeah.
My full pack with the bow attached to it and 12 days of food is going to be over 60 pounds.
Yeah, it's hard to get under that, isn't it?
It sucks, and it would be really nice to lighten up that bow, to shoot like a carbon bow with minimum stabilization, all that. But at some point you just got to be accurate, and whatever. I don't even think about the weight of my bow. I just have a reasonable stabilization setup that's going to make me shoot okay, and then I just hunt with it all year.
And I always coach people, if you're going to go lighter, say for a sheep hunt or something that you're going to pack in, maybe instead of just getting rid of the weight, go longer on your bars.
Yeah.
Okay, go a little bit longer on your bars. Maybe run 2 bars, and with less weight on the end of them, it'll have more stabilizing
makes
effect.
sense. So, sure, yeah. I mean, double the bars, it doubles.
You still keep the weight down, but you're upping the leverage.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, archery is, I like how you've said, archery is about solving problems, right?
Yeah.
And people take one thing too far, and then it causes a different problem.
Sure.
Right. Like the guys, like I shoot airstrike arrows, for example. Best arrow I've ever shot, and I shoot a 410 grain arrow.
Yeah.
I'm running 163 grains up front because I shoot 125 grain point with the gold tip insert system's 38 grains. So it's 163 grains up front, gives me almost 17% FOC with a 410 grain arrow. So I'm getting, in my opinion, they shoot really well in the wind.
Yeah, that's and that's the importance, to you guys that don't understand FOC. It's really thrown around a bunch, and I don't think people truly understand.
I don't think so either.
It's true value. Yeah. I don't think it's a penetration value as much as it is the wind performance.
That's where I've shot side by side with low FOC and high FOC, and I feel they move less in the wind.
Yeah, Jim Bath is an old guy down in Manhattan, Kansas, been around forever. Just killed a bunch of giant whitetails. Have you heard of him?
I haven't, no.
But this guy for 30 years has shot giant whitetails with a 280 grain arrow with a 55 grain rocket glued in the front of it.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
But again, you're talking 35 to 40 yards in, and he wants it fast so they don't jump the string.
That's right.
Solving a problem.
That's right.
So the problem of FOC doesn't really crop up to him because of his distance, right?
Right.
But when you're shooting in the west and you're going...
Yeah, I might be shooting 90 yards in a lot of wind.
Yeah, in the wind,
and the FOC helps, right? And I'm shooting extremely small vanes, again, for that crosswind performance. And I try to balance all these things. Like, guys get hung up, like, on these heavy arrows.
Right.
And these 2-blade broadheads and penetration. And it's like they think they're shooting, like, a bigger rifle or something, And the thing is, like, it's like, okay, you're right. A 600 grain arrow with a 2-blade broadhead is going to out-penetrate my 410 grain arrow.
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, if we're shooting through ballistic gelatin or whatever,
No, it's not.
you don't think so necessarily?
No. Have you seen Joel Maxwell's tests? I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
If you take the same bow, and a bow is sitting there at 85 to 87% efficiency, and you take a 400 grain arrow, a 500 grain arrow, and a 600 grain arrow,
Yep.
and you shoot it out of the same bow, that tells you how much energy that bow put into that arrow.
Right.
I did this test one time with the Matthews LX Pro Hunters and some Full Metal Jackets. Not one time did the Full Metal Jacket out penetrate the Pro Hunter. And Joel did the same thing. If you look on his stuff on Facebook and Instagram, the penetration was almost always equal because the bow puts the energy into the arrow. The arrow can only harness so much energy.
Right.
Now, that's not to mean that arrow doesn't retain its energy better downrange.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how much energy you need to pass through any given animal is based on the animal itself. So that's kind of where the consideration needs to be made. I think the broadhead design, we were talking about Paige shot two Cape buffalo and she shot a giraffe. Well, she brought over these broadheads that she shoots that's kind of a little tiny 4-blade, and they're like, you're not shooting that. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, 2-blade only on dangerous game. And I think they've seen it enough that the problem is the way their ribs and stuff overlap. You definitely have to do a 2-blade.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think my point is though that people will take one problem and take it too far,
right?
Trying to solve it. Like the guys who are trying to solve the penetration problem, they're shooting heavy arrows, 2-blade, whatever, but now they're shooting an arrow that shoots like a rainbow,
right?
Shooting 260 feet per second.
No, Paige said she's shooting 215.
Yeah. I mean, that like, okay, fine. If you're shooting at a known distance over water or something, that can be acceptable. But the type of hunting we do in the West, like we need a fast arrow.
Yeah.
And, for me, the bigger the animal, the smaller the broadhead. The smaller the animal, the bigger the broadhead.
Right.
So if I'm shooting a moose, I shoot a small 3-blade fixed.
Grim Reaper.
I shoot the Hades.
That's a really good head. And
Inch and 16th.
People need to look at the point of this head too. I always tell people, use the litmus test. If I'm going to shove that through my hand, which one would go in easier? Pretty easy to understand that concept. I'm not a big fan of single bevel heads and stuff because there's no way that thing's going to go through my hand way easier than a single bevel.
That's quite an image.
That same head there too. Look at that.
See, now that's my whitetail head.
Yeah, that's a dang needle point. I love those heads on those Grim Reapers. That's one of my favorite fixed blade heads, actually.
But I've been able to tune my setup where I carry 3 broadheads, 3 different types. I carry a small fixed head. I carry a medium size, like 1 3/8 mechanical, and I carry 1 3/4 mechanical. And given the shot, they all group together out to 100 yards with my field points.
Well, as long as you do the due diligence.
Yeah, I mean, I shoot all this stuff, and they all shoot well, and I tune my stuff phonetically. And like you said, my draw length's so short, I can get away with a lot.
Yeah,
but
that would never work for me.
But
these would probably just come open in flight the moment my bow hit them. But
yeah, you have to super glue them. No, kidding.
But you're right. People do like take the FOC and thing out of control. It's just because a little bit more is better doesn't mean a whole lot more is that much better.
Well, you start offsetting other stuff.
And a lot of the Ashby studies and stuff were done back when bow efficiency, like Joel talks about, was done recurves and stuff.
Yeah.
Where bow efficiency was not at its highest. With a recurve and a longbow, your efficiency is not that good. How much energy the bow transfers into the arrow is lower, so the mass weight of the arrow actually has.
What are efficiencies at these days on a modern compound?
It's mid-80s. So, and according to him, Joel's big Bennett Matthews since forever, and has a lot of conversations with their engineering team. And, most of the engineers at Matthews shoot light arrows, 350 to 400 grains.
Yep.
Because they understand that. When I shoot a 350 grain arrow, I get 1 foot per second for every 3 grains of arrow weight. If I shoot a 500 grain arrow, I get 1 foot a second for every 4 to 5 grains of arrow weight. So at some point, it takes more to get that mass into motion. Yes, I concede it takes more to stop that mass too, but the balance is what problem are we trying to solve as a bow hunter?
That's right.
To me, number one problem a bow hunter has.
Estimation.
How far it is from here to there.
That's number one problem.
I shot a monster mule deer last year, and I was shooting 320 foot a second, and he was 35-inch wide buck, And I popped over this ridge, and he was there. And I'm like, I ducked back down, and I tried to get up and range him, and it was in the grass, and I was panicking because I thought he was going to blow.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to come up, judge, and shoot, and it was a mistake.
Yeah.
I probably missed it. I'm an expert yardage judge, and I probably missed him by 7-8 yards.
Yeah.
You know, shot him through clipped his leg or something stupid. You know, it's just like, that was just.
Yardage estimation is number one. And so if you can get
huge
some more
risk.
speed, and in addition to that, if you can cut a bigger hole.
Well,
because if you're slightly off and you have a huge hole, I mean, people talk about penetration. Look, there's only one direction that penetration helps, and that's if you hit it in the shoulder.
Yeah.
If you hit it back, up, or down, I'd rather have a 2-inch broadhead.
Exactly.
Now, and so you're telling me for like literally 20% chance of the miss is going to be in the shoulder, that just for that one thing, you're going to shoot a 2-blade broadhead. And if you hit it 80% of the time you're missing, it's high, low, or back.
Yeah.
In fact, usually it's back because the animal's walking.
Yeah.
Back is the most common miss.
Exactly. They act like everybody misses in the shoulder, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's like, okay, so you're solving from one problem and you're ignoring all the other problems.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I first started shooting rear deploy mechanicals, I shot NAP kill zones. I shot 2 does with them up in Wyoming, and I hit, I made 2 liver shots.
Yeah.
And both of those animals died in 100 yards, and I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I've hit animals where the wind took the arrow and hit them right in front of the hips.
Yep.
And you might as well hard shot them.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, they went down so fast.
With a big cut.
Because of the big cut.
With
You're
the
exactly
big
right.
cut, man.
Jake.
Same shot with a tiny little 3-blade fixed, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, or a 2-blade, you got to be kidding.
You know, Jed at A3 Guide Service in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, I know A3, yeah.
They kill some monster bulls down on the White Mountains and stuff. And Jed told me, I think it was last year, the year before at the expo up here, he's like, I'd rather have a guy show up in camp with a rear deploy mechanical. Mm-hmm. We recover more elk shot with rear deploy mechanicals than any other design.
Interesting.
And that's just because it's a huge sucking chest wound, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're not passing completely through elk. Big bone animals, or they're quartered to you.
It's very, especially if you hit that off shoulder.
A lot of those shots, I mean, over the years, it's always been kind of right at dark. You got a herd of animals and they blow and you don't know where they went. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, with a little fixed blade like this, you may or may not have blood for 30, 40, 100 yards. Yeah. And that gets really tough to try to sort out.
So we killed probably, 400 black bears in my area when I owned it. And the number one thing we had lost bears on were tiny fixed blades.
Yeah.
And, you know, bears, they don't bleed much. There's the fat and they just,
Did
you
punch a massive hole in their chest?
Oh, dude, they're dead in 30 yards.
Yeah, it's because
they die.
I think people don't understand the sucking chest wound. When I was in the military, they always taught us how to fix a sucking chest wound. And I got to thinking about that. It's like, well, when you blow a giant entry hole, their whole entire cavity fills with air and they pass out so quick. It's like, they just can't get a compression in their chest to get a breath.
Yeah.
So just like the old,
I love big holes, man.
I mean, you know about the rear naked choke, right? You're a jiu-jitsu guy.
I do it every day.
This guy's
6 days a week.
This guy's a jiu-jitsu master too. So I'm not rolling with him.
No, we were thinking about maybe doing some extra footage here. We got a mat right here. So
yeah, my wrestling stopped at 9th grade. I probably get schooled. Only thing I can do is keep them at arm's length.
Maybe.
So anyway, we're drawing a close to this conversation. It's been about an hour, so it's been a good conversation,
fun,
Allen, and I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being a part of the Archery Ops podcast. We hope to, just build on this and, bring all kinds of experts to the archery and bow hunting community so that we can all learn together. So,
well, thanks, man. And I appreciate Gold Tip. I've been shooting arrows for many years. It's a fantastic product. Airstrike, man, it changed my life. I love that
this
arrow.
Airstrike, what he commented on this Airstrike just gave him good FOC with speed, and that was exactly why it was designed. It was designed as a lightweight shaft that allowed you to either shoot fast with one component or faster or just as fast as you were doing with more FOC. So
you put the standard outsert system and the in-out and 125 grain. You have 163 grains up front, and you're still freaking fast. It's an awesome setup.
Yep, it's a great setup, really is. And the sister to this arrow is the Black Label Quantum. You can get that through. It's a dealer-only arrow. I use that a lot. It's a black shaft that doesn't have the gray coating, but same great arrow. an arrow is just a broadhead delivery system. They all are tools to get a job done. It's just like you wouldn't use the same nail for every job in a carpentry project. You won't use the same arrow for every job in a bow hunting or target archery scenario. So with that, we're going to close. And if you guys want more information, be sure to follow Allen on Instagram. What's your
Allen Bolen?
Just Allen Bolen, ALLENBOLEN. Yeah. And share some of his hunts and successes with him. He's got some good videos on there. If you guys want to learn how to tie a peep in, we did a video with him here in this shop several years ago, and it's got a lot of views, I think. So
it does. That is the best peep tie-in system.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So again, Gold Tip's YouTube channel. There's a lot of information there. We hope to bring more and more to you all the time. We have hammers hacks that follow these sessions that give you a little tip or a trick that that I know that might help you become a better bow hunter and target archer. Hey, before you go, there's a great way to get even more info and tips. Follow this podcast and check out Gold Tip on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for listening, and as always, start tough and stay true.